So one of the more extensive items I've got in my unfamiliar area everyday carry is going to be this small, what I first described as a first aid kit, but actually probably a little bit more of an accurate description is like a health hygiene kit, because I'm looking to cover a number of contingencies with this, of course. So I'm just going to take you through the content and just talk about each item a little bit in turn. So the first thing I've got in there is this small bottle of sort of alcohol sanitizer. Now this was a really convenient size, which I found in the airport shop actually, sort of on arrival. And again, you know, what I don't want to be doing is having any kind of unnecessary bulk. So this is very easy to use for a day or two and then refill afterwards if I want to. So I've got that obviously for its intended use, the sort of hand sanitizing purposes, whatever the case may be. Obviously in this urban environment, it's not like I'm a germaphobe, but you can be coming into contact with some fairly sort of grim circumstances potentially. So just having the ability to clean yourself up after is nice. What I've then got in is this fantastic small container of Vaseline. Now that really deals very nicely with any kind of sort of chafes or rubs or things like that. This is actually designed as a kind of lip salve applicant, which is, you know, that's also fine, you can use it for that, but again I can just squeeze out a larger quantity if I've got some sort of irritation or rub or rash that I just want to sort of smooth over a little bit. What I've then got is this fantastic little sort of actually what looks like talcum powder container, but this one is actually a neosporin, so it's like an antibiotic powder, so it's fulfilling two functions in one go. One is it's actually giving me sort of antibiotic powder, which is great in terms of sort of you know, cleanliness, but also it's giving me the sort of talcum effect that I'm after as well. Especially as I'm going around in this kind of, you know, quite warm area, my feet are really quite suffering quite badly. So the ability to occasionally stop in a relatively nice area, take my shoes and socks off, get my feet sort of dried and aired, and then potentially powder them before getting everything back on is nice. You know, you can't underestimate the amount of walking around I'm doing, just sort of exploring and practicing and testing in this city. And that's kind of a real military throwback, isn't it? Of course, looking after your feet and powdering them regularly and things like that, but with good reason. The next thing I've got then in here is of course a couple of tampons, and you know, infinite amount of uses, but in the context of this kind of first aid kit, we're looking obviously at small wound dressings, because they're great obviously at absorbing blood should you have a female companion, and you know, inadvertently she needs them for their intended purpose, then you've got that contingency covered as well. Now actually aligned to that, I've also got a sanitary towel. Now again, this makes an absolutely fantastic wound dressing as well as its intended purpose, and it doesn't really work in reverse. You know, a sanitary towel can make a great slightly larger wound dressing if I don't want to break open my tiny trauma kit, but I feel that this kind of small tampon isn't adequate. But if I had a wound dressing, that wouldn't necessarily a sanitary towel make. And if you don't believe me on that, find a female companion you can convince to try out you know, a wound dressing as a sanitary towel, and give her sort of 10 minutes to give you some feedback on exactly what she thinks about that idea. So again, the multifaceted idea of that for me is kind of really useful. Obviously a small selection of just adhesive dressings in different sizes, and it would be very easy to add to that some small sort of blister specific dressings. I'm a big fan of those. I haven't had the opportunity to pick any up yet, but if I find them, certainly I would add 3 or 4 sort of Compeed brand or that style plasters in there. Then I've got a couple of wound cleansing wipes, again good for their intended purpose, or you know, if I find I've got a little sort of physical debris I want to get off my hands before I apply my hand sanitizer or something like that, then I can do. One of the things, again, I don't read that much about, but you can't sort of really underestimate, is a good pair of tweezers. You know, you can't fathom really the amount of times I've been in environments such as this one and just picked up, you know, sort of splinters and little kind of things that are digging into the skin. I don't want to root around with a kind of knife or a scalpel blade or something, so just a good, fine, sharp pair of tweezers is really great to kind of just get in there. Amongst actually a lot of other tasks I use those tweezers for, especially in sort of small electronic repair and things like that. So as I am tinkering different pieces of equipment, when you drop things and the tweezers can kind of reach in there and get them. So as you know, I'm a big fan of the sort of multi-use way of approaching sort of equipment that I'm carrying. The final thing then is just a small packet of safety pins. I can obviously use this to hold different things in place. I can use it for temporary clothing repair, I can use it for kind of improvised slings if I wish to. All those things, it's very, very difficult to replicate, very, very useful to have should you need it. And especially just going back to that emergency clothing repair in this environment, that's kind of quite a reassuring thing to have. If you're cutting around the city and suddenly you have like a clothing malfunction, it's not something you necessarily want to be having to sort of cope with the entire day. It's good if you can just kind of get a temporary repair on there, get it sort of hung in place until you've got time to adequately fix it. So aside from the Compeed, there's one thing I mentioned there, the Compeed or the blister dressing that I would like to add into here. The only other thing that I really like to add is potentially just a small bar of soap. The kind of complementary hotel soaps or something like that. Again, from the hygiene side of things, would be a real benefit to have and isn't going to take up a huge amount of room in there. So I'd like you to bear those two things in mind. Obviously I've only been in the city 2 days, so I'm sort of just making all this stuff, all these kits up as I go. And so I haven't had the opportunity yet necessarily to fully populate everything I want. But what I didn't want to do is delay making these videos for the sake of trying to find these items. Alright, so that's my kind of health hygiene kit that I'm carrying. Now I do acknowledge, and I'm sure lots of you will be thinking or commenting, oh, but you can carry this thing, and what about this thing, this thing, this thing? Yes, I'm absolutely not disputing. I could add far more stuff to every aspect of these kits, but then we get the problem that like suddenly I'm carrying that 45-pound patrol pack instead of a small discreet bag weighing half a pound, 1 pound, 2 pounds or something like that. If I'm carrying it, that's the thing, I've got to carry it, I've got to haul it around with me, and all of the incumbent sort of process that takes. So again, I'm looking at, in the beginning, ultra streamline. I can't emphasize that enough. Lightweight, multifunction, low pack size. Those are my kind of big ambitions. As and when I decide I need to add things to this, as I get more comfortable or familiar with the environment, then they can possibly kind of creep into the kit after that. But in the beginning, I'm trying to keep this very basic, very portable, and very sort of open to a number of alternatives. I'm just going to keep repeating that until you guys get comfortable with that concept. So just by means of a quick review, I want to take you very briefly through the contents of the full kit, the Health and Hygiene Kit. So as a recap, we had the sanitary towel, a selection of adhesive dressings. I've now actually added in the Compeed dressings that are about the anti-blister or the blister treatment dressings. Now I just want to highlight one thing with these. I've left them in the original packaging so you can kind of see what they are and then hopefully find the same or an equivalent. And they come primarily in 2 different sizes. Now I've got the quite small ones, so you'll actually see in these that they're, this container is ridiculously outsized. So what I'd look to do realistically is take these from this container and actually put them in this small Ziploc bag with my safety pins. There's no way I'm going to carry something around of that size with no good reason. And even on the larger dressings, I'm still going to take it out of this plastic container and just put it in a small Ziploc. So there's that. I have my small talc, or in this circumstance the Neosporin, the Vaseline, the hand sanitizer, 2 wound cleansers, 2 tampons, the selection of safety pins, a small bar of soap, and my fine nose tweezers. So that's the complete kit, and again I just keep that stowed away nicely in a simple Ziploc bag just to kind of weatherproof everything and keep it all together.